in the conversation we are about to have with some of the members of the strategic committee, we are going to be discussing how this plan was formed, or how did it come into, into development, how we are measuring the progress that we make, in implementing the plan, and how everyone, all institutions across the region can be involved in this. To join me in this, I'd like to welcome Dr. Peter Bankole, the Chief Operating Officer for Pan-Atlantic University. Professor Justice Baole, Dean of the University of Ghana Business School. And Dr. Debrina Agbenyiga, Provost Vice President for Academic Affairs, International University of Grand Bassam in Ivory Coast. Thank you so much for joining me. All right, to get started, over the next about 30 minutes or so, I'm hoping that we can discuss how the strategic plan came about, what we considered, etc., right, and how we are implementing it. Maybe Dr. Banki, I can pass you my microphone. We can start with you. So what were the driving factors that led to the development of the strategic plan for the West Africa Hub?
Okay, thank you, Rose. About a year ago, we brought the strategic committee members together. These were people that were not just active and believe in the collaborative, but they wanted to do something and achieve even more. And so here in just across the place, we'll be there tomorrow, the Vice Chancellor, the leaders of those institutions sat together and said, what are the priorities? What are the things we should be looking at across West Africa? What are the things that are trending? What are the things that, if we're able to solve them, then we will have made giant stride across the region? And one of those, the ones that came out very vividly is that when we train our students, how are they getting into the job market? And there were so many discussions around it. How are we tracing them? How are we ensuring that we're preparing them very well? So in a very collaborative manner, it became very obvious that that has to be one of the leading pillars. Then again, in fact, we had 7, 10 different things we wanted to pursue. Then we had to ask ourselves, which ones are the easy ones to start with? Which ones are we attracted to as institutions? Which ones do we have facility or we have faculty that are interested, so that you don't start something that we're going to be struggling with? So we basically gravitated towards what majority of us felt it was important. We have the capacity to do it, and we have the willingness to also want to make it up. And then we ended up with 4 pillars, which is one on ethics and leadership. Second one is around career and employability. Then there's around faculty development and research. And finally, the one that seems to tie together the SSA ranking. Thank you.
All right. So as you may have realized, these pillars really do underpin what the Education Collaborative in general, right, focuses on. So you might wonder why the hub approach, right? Why is West Africa and the leaders in the West Africa region discussing how to go about this, just as a region? The Education Collaborative's goal really is to bring together institutions who are committed and unwavering in this commitment, right, to improve on the outcomes of graduates for this continent. Not just in the input or what you put into the graduates while they are in our institutions, but what they do when they come out of our institutions and how they contribute to the continent's development. And in doing that, we operationalize through regional hubs. Now, we have the regional hub approach for contextualization. and also really for reach. Right, it's easier and more relevant and contextual. Or, you can relate better to the institution next door when it comes to regulatory, underpinnings on the work you do. West Africa has a certain regulatory body, at least to an extent. Maybe ECOWAS, for instance, in West Africa has some focus in higher education regulations. East Africa has theirs. And Southern Africa also has it, right? So that also, because it drives some of the policies we set, some of the actions and structures that are set, the regional approach is almost like a lower barrier to getting institutions to connect and to build the evidence that we need to drive change within the region and then across regions to cover the entire continent. So that's why we have the regional hub approach in the Education Collaborative. Currently in the West Africa region, we are in about seven countries and 36 higher education institutions. The host institution in West Africa is Pan-Atlantic University. The host institution for any regional hub is selected by leaders, other university leaders or higher education leaders in that same hub, in a process that is inclusive and collaborative. In the West Africa Hub, the initial strategic committee that heads the prioritization of strategy, resource allocation, and how to really drive the agenda of the Education Collaborative in the hub. These are currently 10 institutions in the West Africa region. And when you look on your brochure, you will see these institutions listed. Right? Now, that doesn't mean forever they are the institutions driving this, right? This is a rotational process. So the West Africa region has many more institutions, and we're actually looking to reach over 50 member institutions in the Education Collaborative. But at every point in time, about 10 or 12 of these institutions, represented by their institutional leaders, are the ones discussing what are the priorities, where should we allocate resources, etc. So this inaugural committee of leaders are the ones that propose this initial strategic plan. My next question goes to Dr. Debrina. What would you say, if we could just go a little deeper into the key priority focus areas that Dr. Banki just spoke about? How does the strategic plan aim to enhance collaborative research in the region? How does it connect to the institution's priorities and then build up their capabilities to focus, on collaborative research?
Yes. So I think what has really been great about us being together and looking at our 4 strategic priorities, which I would say all of these priorities drive research. And so our conversation, even yesterday, has been about how is it that with the work that we're doing in these 4 areas that are really important pillars for any institution, then how is it that we start telling our story, telling the African story, putting it into the context of understanding the research in these specific areas? And so what we are now pushing is, as we look at ethics and leadership, how is it that we start to write about what does ethics and leadership look like? How do we define that in the African context? Because then that helps us to define other aspects of our research and research development. The other thing that it's allowing us to do is how is it we collaborate across institutions to support each other with research? Some of us have, much more experience in other areas, so how do we collaborate in that way to build up research capacity across our institutions? But again, the key to that is also how do we make sure we are publishing that information? So how do we publish it in our academic journals? But also, just as Patrick mentioned, how do we also get this into other documents, into policy papers, into the newspapers, into other environmental aspects? How do we connect our work to the development goals as well, which is also a big part of the research that we're doing? And so with that, in addition to us just talking about supporting each other with research, we're also talking about how do we build research capacity And all of our 4 strategic areas are important key areas to our institutions. And how do we start telling that African story of what this looks like in our context?
Thank you. Dr. Baole, would you like to add to that?
I think I should say briefly about the kind of passion that when we meet, I see exude. All of the SC members, you see that the passion is about, forging a collaborative spirit that goes beyond what our individual institutions are doing. To the extent where institutional heads and reps are willing to put resources at the disposal of other institutions, the extent to which members were willing to volunteer to take leadership, for example, on specific items and to put their best foot forward and say, this is what we have, and that other institutions can learn from us, for me, is that actually drives this whole idea of collaboration. I know that the institutions within the collaborative are at different levels of development, that have different access to resources and capacities. But when we come together and we are talking, you don't actually notice that. What you see is the passion that each institution is willing to put its resources forward and to ensure that things happen. So the issue about research, for example, and what we could do, there are specific elements within that strategic pillar. For example, the issue about doctoral education and support. For example, how we could support faculty and younger scholars to grow. How we could establish research teams across the network and to ensure that people can actually work together. And it is that which is led to some kind of synergy between the ethics pillar and the faculty development pillar, where colleagues are already working together and ensuring that we can create some synergy. And so that whilst we are looking at how to enhance research capabilities within the network, we are also looking at research teams that actually support what other pillars do. So the area of ethics and ethical leadership, ethical universities already being defined, and very soon our hub is going to be leading the charge to define and create a certain definition, as it were, of what an ethical university should be like and related matters. And I think that this kinds of collaboration is what we haven't really seen a lot. Several of us within the African continent, in the West Africa, have partnerships across the sea. And we travel all the way to go get collaborations with universities elsewhere, whilst just next door and maybe in the same country, those same resources are available to be harvested literally for free. So this is what I think makes me excited as head of business school to be part of this and to contribute to making it successful. Thank you.
Thank you, Justice. So I think what you said about, the excitement, with everyone, how the energy that is there in that strategic committee and how we are engaging the entire West Africa really goes to something that, Patrick, you mentioned about building that interface for collaboration, right? Finding that thing that gets us to open up, to share with each other in a way that works. In that sense, and when you were speaking, Prof. Baole, you mentioned how the research bit of the strategic plan is connected with the ethical development part of it, right? Ethical leadership, where the research being driven is around what is an ethical university, right? By looking at some of the cases of institutions that are building ethical cultures, right? And pulling out what those factors are, or those indicators for an ethical university are. And how it also connects to the faculty development piece, which is talking about how do we build the capacity of our faculty to lead research, to write research that is relevant to our context. I want to bring you back in, Dr. Banky, around, when we say research, we always think about academics and faculty. What about the rest of us who are not academics and faculty? How is this strategic plan drawing us in to study our work and write it up, publish it, and share it in research?
Thank you, Rose. You see, one of the interesting things about EduCollab is that we're bringing the entire spectrum of universities or business together. So whether you are the vice chancellor, the deputy, the administrators, those in career and development, everybody's coming together. And every single action that you take, there is always something to learn from it. I think we have to slowly move away from the way we have been brought up and the way we have been cultured, especially the West and typically academics, that if something is not published in whatever rated journal, then it is not something you can learn from. I think it's not true. And I think Patrick alluded to that fact, that there are many things that are happening that we may not think about it, but it might be very relevant to somebody else. And I'll give you one example. We had a visit to Ashesi at some point, or maybe it was during one of those convening, and we're talking about student affairs. And we talked about research. The student affairs, I just stepped back that this is not part of what I do. I said, no. How are you managing student accommodation? What are the things that you are learning from them? Is there some kind of behavioral things? How are you making sure that they are... And all of a sudden, you can see there are a lot of learning that, if well documented, can be shared. And so if you are in careers and employability, for instance, I'm just doing my thing, that is it. But no, it's not like that. There are certain things and methods that you might have perfected. It could be about, and I think now we are seeing it, tracer studies, that is becoming very interesting. And people are saying, oh, is this the way you are doing it there? Fantastic, let's learn from it and do it here. But somebody will say, oh, maybe because your university is small, perhaps we can look at it for bigger universities. As we do all those things, we're researching, we're learning. And that's what it's all about. Some of it could be in practice journals. And these practice journals could be the voice that is needed within the collaborative. And I think one thing that I have noticed in the 1 year or so that I've chaired this West African Hub is that people are extremely willing to share. Extremely. In fact, I'm almost charging them for oversharing. Yesterday, we had a combined session of the SC and the TC, and we said we're going to, every single pillar, they were overextending, people were bringing all kinds of interesting insights. And I was saying to myself, if there is a way of documenting this, and maybe we call it EduCollab Chronicles or something like that, people that are outside this collaborative for now will see value in it and they will come into it. So research is not only for the academics, it's actually for everyone across the university system. Thank you.
And if I could just add, Rita, in addition to that, we are creating champions. And so we are actually recruiting champions now. Those are individuals who on their campus will really lead and kind of be the trainer with respects to ethics and leadership as well. So you can find the QR codes for all those surveys and to sign up to be a champion in the exhibit hall as well, but we'll send that out. But again, that's another way for us to bring in the entire institution as we're looking at things through the West African Hub.
Great, thank you. I think one of the, ways that the hubs, right, in the Education Collaborative are sustained, right? Or we ensure that the work continues, is that each regional hub actually has an administrative team. So beyond the executive leaders and representative, institutions that are driving the priorities through the strategic committee, SC, as you hear, and the technical committees, TC, as you've heard, there is staff. So staff members who are basically managing the administrative part of all of this, right? Continuing to send out reminders, capturing reports, minutes, follow-ons, supporting with tracking, measurements, etc. With that, I would like us to talk a little bit about one of the very key pillars that we have, which is employability and career development, right? And you mentioned it earlier, Dr. Banki, that it's one of the things that we are focusing on. What really is that focus? At the end of this 2-year period, and even beyond of the strategic plan, what do we want to see that all West African institutions have?
Okay, so first of all, we all agreed that it doesn't make sense for our students to finish their studies and then they go out, they stay for 2 or 3 years before they get employed. So this is very important. But then we need to know how we are achieving this success, if indeed they are all getting employed. So as at today, maybe by this June, we want to be able to conduct a baseline. And it doesn't matter where you are. So if today it is 0, we will have your baseline. If it's 5, whatever, we have the baseline. And then the whole idea is that every year you are getting better. And so long as every institution is getting better, the whole of West Africa is getting better. That is the first philosophy around this. The second thing is that when you do not deliberately and intentionally capture data, you do not have a clear vision of how you are moving or how you should be moving. So if, for instance, it takes 3 years for those graduating in my university to get a job, then it means there is something that I'm not doing correctly. Then I may learn from another institution and I can begin to implement almost immediately. For instance, one of the things that we have found out is that the students, they do Facebook, they do LinkedIn, they do this. Deliberately now, we brought young people that are very good at using LinkedIn to come year 1, year 2, to have a broad conversation with our students and to teach them how to effectively use LinkedIn. And so I am seeing our students now that when they come for a conference or they do something, they're writing about it, they're showing it, they're putting it on their page. That is making them to look and feel more professional than talking about all kinds of things that are not related to what they are doing. That's one. I know, for instance, some of our students that are going to be doing the scribes over these 2 days, they are going to be proudly talking about it, that for the very first West African Hub convening, they were among the 4 scribes. Now that's a badge which they will place on their day. So more and more, we are showing them that even those little things that you are doing is going to make a big difference in future. Because when employers are looking for and they are doing due diligence on you, they will ask for your social media handles. And then they want to see what you are talking about or what you are engaging about. There is one of my students, I'm so excited about this guy, is ever so connecting every single thing that he's doing with where he's going. And I said, you are very intentional, extremely intentional. If he goes for internship, he will pull out something from that internship, he will publish it, and he will connect it to where he's going. These are the tools and things that we are teaching the people. And we can learn all of that from each other. So that's why this is very key. At the end of the day, let all our students be fully engaged when they come out of the institutions. West Africa will be better for it.
Thank you.
Yes, let me just add a bit to the conversation on employability. One of the hardest things or questions that I've had to answer anytime I've gone to have meetings with industry captains would be, and government officials would be, but you guys are training those guys where there are no jobs, where are you putting them? Sometimes I have a nasty response for them. I tell them I'm a business school, I have no laboratory. My laboratory is your business. You are not willing to take our students on internship and stuff like that. And then I will tell them about how they have contributed to stifling development and all of that. But when I am back home, it sets me thinking. Because those questions are legitimate questions to those of us who are leaders in educational institutions. How are we setting our students up to be successful when they leave us? And that conversation we cannot run away from. It doesn't matter whether you're a small or big university, you cannot run away from it. So for us, when we, before we joined the collaborative, we had done quite a bit of work. We have what we refer to as the Student Services and Mentoring and Student Services Unit that work with our students. But the sheer numbers of the students were such that your best is just not enough. We have an alumni office that work with our alumni to try and bring people, the alumni back to the classroom to help connect our students with them and all of that. But again, I'm talking about 2,000 students per cohort on my main campus, another 2,000 of students in my Accra City campus cohort for just level 100, and you have that for 4 years. So you look at the numbers are huge. And so I've been thinking about how can we scale? How can we ensure that what we do actually catches more fire and a lot more students can benefit? And that's where the conversation around what happens within the collaborative helps. Where we're looking at what others are doing, we're looking at how units are setting up the systems and to help, and we are learning some of it, and we are sharing what we also are doing, and to make sure that students can get a lot more. We are learning how to bring people to the institutions. We are learning how to connect companies. And that led us to the establishment of our hub, the Innovation and Incubation Hub, that is connecting our people to businesses and helping young people to set up their own businesses and to help them to leave us. And I can say, my secretary's son finished with us. And then we asked him to do national service. He says, no, thank you. I want to work on my own project. And he finished, and we offered him a job. He says, no, I want to work on my own project. And he's working on his project currently, developing a very complex security measure. And he would often ask you, as we sit here, if anybody were to feel unsafe, especially those of us who came from outside of Lagos, if you were to feel unsafe, I'm not sure any of us took time to survey our environment to see where we can even find security. But this young man has an app on your phone, and you press it, and all security installation in the area that you are will get alert and show exactly where you are so that you can be rescued. And he's developing this, and I guess I told him I want to be part of his team when he's negotiating to get a big buyout, some $10 million, so I can cash out. You know, but those are the things that you learn, and we are sharing what we have. We are learning from what others are doing. We know that our colleagues in UCC have been doing that quite a lot. Ashasi has a model that has worked many years, and we're learning from it, and all of that. And your team come to our place to work with our team, and we're picking up skill set and sharing. Here, as a friend would say, we are learning to be dirty as the others and be clean as the others. So if you are here and you haven't started learning how to dirty yourself in the game, please, there are too many people here. Make sure everybody rubs something with you so you can go back with it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let's get into the discussion around how are we tracking, measuring, because we are saying all these really wonderful things around our strategic plan, you know, the pillars, what we want to achieve with it, but how do we know it's working? You know, how are we following through with this and tracking progress? And before you come in, Dr. Debrina, to get us started, I just want to let everyone know that when you look on your on your badges, that QR code, when you open your phone camera and you scan it, it will lead you to the strategic plan for the West Africa Hub, so that you can, maybe read along and see the details of it for further discussion. Debrina.
Well, I think one of the key things, as you mentioned, the staff that we have for the West African Hub, which is a phenomenal group working with us and really keep us in order. So if you look at the strategic plan, we first started there. And in everything that we do, and really have to give credit to the technical committee, because they did really a phenomenal job with coming out with the strategies and really mapping it out for us. And then, as the strategic committee, we were able to go in and narrow things down to say, these are the 4 pillars. What are we going to be looking at in each one of these pillars? And then what are the tasks? What each task and action plan is actually going to be, and then how we are tracking what it is that we say that we're doing. And, Rita makes sure that we all stay on task. If you look at the strategic plan, things are color-coded, so, those of us who have yellow are ready to try to get to green. But it really is a way for us to track our progress. And as we mentioned, in each one of these areas, we're actually collecting data. And we're collecting that data, as Dr. Banki actually said, some of that is for baseline, so we can see where we are, so we can measure our progress. So we can also look and see what plans that we've implemented that has been working across the various West African institutions as well. And with all of this data, we're then able to go back. And so we've now broken things up into phases. So now we have data collection going on in this phase 1, utilizing that data, and as I said, wanting to report on that. Then we are tracking to see what's the next phase going to be. So yesterday, although we haven't finished phase 1, we've already started conversation about what phase 2 is going to be looking like in each one of these areas. And what's so great is we're collecting this data from each one of our institutions. And I want to really get back to what my colleague Justin just said about getting dirty, because I think what we're demonstrating here in the West African Hub is vulnerability. We are all coming in and being totally open and honest about who we are, where we've failed, where we've been successful, and how is it that we can help each other to be on that path of success as well. But we are also a very data-driven group of leaders, and I think that's what's going to help us with that tracking continuing.
Thank you. I know for a fact that there are champions for all of these different pillars, right? Banki, could you talk a bit more about how did we, even identify the champions for the pillars? Who are these champions, and how are we utilizing champions?
Okay, so I think there is recognition that each institution come to the table with specific strengths. But others also come with complementary skill sets and things like that. And we respect that. And so in choosing the champions or the leaders of those pillars, we threw it open. And we said, who is interested in this and can offer something that is of significant value that can better the rest of us? And freely and willingly, people volunteered. But there were guiding principles. And those guiding principles were, 1, you can only lead in one. You can't lead in 2, so that we give opportunities to others. Because you are not the only one that is good in all the 4. It's not possible. However, if you have additional things you can contribute, then you will be like the sublet, if you want to put it like that. But then everybody else is welcome to join any particular pillar to drive it. So really, we came up with one leader, maybe 2 or 3 additions, and then anybody else would join. The second thing is also to say, for you to be in that pillar, to be leading it, it must be something that is like top line for you in your institution. So you are not struggling to say, I want to do this. It's something that is very natural to you. And so that alignment is just like this. You close your eyes. You are going to do it anyway, without the Education Collaborative. That's very key. But because of Education Collaborative, you are going to do a lot more, and others are going to join hands with you, and you are going to achieve more. That's the way it works. And that has helped us significantly to run very fast. And again, thanks to the administrative team that are helping us to follow based on the traffic light system, whether it is green, amber, and I told them, amber, not yellow. They are two different things. And then red. Thank you very much.
If I may just a little bit to that. I remember when the strategic meeting was ongoing. I had, based on our strength, I said I was going to do something. And then my colleague who was on the call called me on phone and said, Dean, have you decided on which one we want to lead? And I said, he said, yes, exactly. That's what I thought we should be leading. So there was a lot of consensus on our individual strengths and where we thought we would be able to support. And of course, each champion had a co-champion. And the co-champion would work with you, and you work to decide on how to roll out the plan and all of that. But when I see the metrics that has been developed, so each goal has, elements for tracking. There are commitments that each individual is making. There are the collaborations that are required to be forged to make sure that this can properly happen, and all of that. And these are things that help every one of us to know where you are and when you should not let down your gun. So I guess that the way this was done was quite good. We were also given opportunity to select or to belong to as many pillars as you wanted. And that's where I got myself telling, oh, this one too, we want to be here. Oh, this one too, we want to join. And we wanted to join literally everything, because all the goals then fit into what we are aspiring to do. And that takes me to that excellent question you asked about how did we come about this. As universities, we all have aspirations. We have stakeholders to respond to. And these aspirations and the stakeholders we have to respond to actually define what our individual strategies are as universities. And by the time that you were to go through the strategic plans of all of the universities that are here, I am sure that if we did that exercise, we would have come to these 4 important pillars, which is why it is difficult for anybody who is here not to find a place to belong. Everybody will find a place of belonging. Thank you.
And I would just say that was such a lively meeting we had virtually that day, because as you said, everybody wanted to be on everything. But I think what was so great, and to Dr. Bunke's leadership style, he made sure that he kept track of who was lead and who was co-lead, and wanted everybody to have an opportunity. But I don't know if when you click on the code, you could actually see, if you click on there to see all of the pillars and who are the co-leads, the leads and co-leads. Every institution is then listed under there as an institution of interest as well. So technically, we're all on every pillar.
Yeah.
Dr. Banki is the best chairman in the world. Yeah, I tell you. Chairman, you live long. Just keep being chairman. Forever. Don't mind democracy. We have voted.
And I'm sure you will notice, when you look on the back page of the back cover of your brochures, that the institutions that form the strategic committee are really diverse. I mean, there are large public universities, very small, very, very, very small public higher education institutions that are not necessarily universities or colleges, right? There are institutions that are technology focused, etc. So it's a very diverse group, and yet, as Prof. Bawale mentioned, that everyone finds a place, right? A place where you are pushing because it matches or aligns with your institutional goals, but then also contributes to the collective goals. Can we talk a bit about that? What are some of the approaches, or how did we achieve that? Balancing institutional priorities and goals with the collective, because you don't want to drop one or the other, right? So how did we achieve that in our strategic planning process?
I think, first of all, everybody was being sincere. That's it. And when I teach, even something about staff within organization. Your staff may have his or her own priorities, and the organization will have its own priorities. Those staff that works very effectively are those whose priorities aligns well with that of the institution. And so in this particular scenario, what I see is that we just align our individual priorities as institutions with that of the collective. But listen to what Justice said. Ultimately, we all are in those 4 buckets, ultimately. And so it wasn't very difficult for everybody to align. So you are not really aligning, whether at the level of EduCollab or your institution, there seems to be no difference. So that's what I see. But it's primarily because of the way in which we have arrived at those pillars. There were 2 or 3 that were very good, but it was not common to everybody. And those were the ones we dropped. If those ones had been there, perhaps these things that you are talking about, somebody may want to push an institutional agenda rather than a collaborative agenda. Yeah.
Just a quick one on this. I think what when I came into the collaborative, one of the things that I thought was very significant, and that kept me hoping that this would achieve great results, was the fact that even if some institution wasn't leading anything, they were still willing to share and to put things at the disposal of others. Yesterday, I met 2 young men who were talking about how the Nigerian regulator is organizing training on AI and how to, and people from everywhere can join, and that it doesn't matter whether you are in Nigeria or not, you can join and all of that. So you will see that every one of the units have our friends from Covenant University with their vice chancellor, very passionate, too much energy. I think we have to make sure that he has so much energy. When he's talking about the things we have to do, you can see the kind of energy. And I see every one of us wanting to show that, look, whilst I have something to learn, I have something to offer, which is the spirit of collaboration. Otherwise, Patrick talked about symbiosis. Those of us who learned science, and your analogy of ecosystem and the fact that there's diversity and all of that. When you were talking, I was looking at what exists in the wild. All right, the animals will eat themselves, but they don't destroy themselves. So no animal kills an animal unless he wants to eat it. Otherwise, they will all eat grass and go. And so there is the system is able to maintain itself because there's no greed and there's no avarice. So that is what I can see in this. And thank you for connecting that to this collaborative, because it is so crucial for our collective survival. Because if you do not have that, it will get to a point where we'll start hiding things. And I remember when I was in secondary school, the university, a young lady who was in our study group never showed anything, never contributed anything, always writing from others. And every exam she was last. Our group, she was the one that got the worst grade because she was not willing to share. And she took things and she had things, she would add it, she didn't share, and therefore didn't get comment of whether or not what he had was good or not. She would write that she would get a worst grade. And she finished as the worst amongst us. The rest of us who were willing to share also did well. And which is what I see in this spirit. And so let's continue to share. I see people are already moving to institutions and inviting people to come over, to come and work with them. Covenant is talking about bringing people across to come and do grant writing and all of that. These are things that if you don't share, people will get it elsewhere anyways. So please share. Well, I have a story about sharing.
Yes. But I think that's getting to your other suggestion where you said we were already going to other places and going across the ocean, as if we don't have knowledge here to share, and as if we haven't been successful here already. And so I did like what you were saying, Patrick, about the ecosystem, because I believe it's so important for us to have that. And Dr. Bemke was also talking about that in his session as well. So what the Education Collaborative has done is open the door for the opportunity for us to come and be a part of an ecosystem that has already been here. And we know we have a role, but we all have roles and parts to play. And I think it's been so helpful to us, at least I can speak for us at the International University of Grand-Bassam, as we were creating a new strategic plan. A lot of what we're looking at and talking about in the Educational Collaborative was already there. And so this was now an opportunity for us to get support on strategic priorities that we have in place and that we need to make sure we're successful at, and now we're bringing that also into this ecosystem to support others as well.
Great, thank you so much. I think we've spoken enough. Let's, for over the next 20 or so minutes, get some comments or questions from the audience around maybe how we arrived at a strategic plan, or any other contributions that you may want to make to this conversation. Does anyone have a question? Okay.
Good afternoon once more. And thank you for this opportunity once more. This is my first time coming to a collaboration. This is something I was thinking about coming from the United States back home. Actually, I'm a Nigerian, born here, bred here, went to school here, and I think I can compete with anybody anywhere, be it Harvard, be it MIT, anywhere. And that's our pride. And I think Africa needs all of us. And what you've done with the strategic proposal, I will say it is at this time, is to give us a platform to really begin to expand our thoughts beyond what it is. The only difficulty I have with strategic plans in my life as a consultant myself, a forensic accountant, someone who's done a lot of consulting for people in this area, is implementation. And that goes back to what the president had said in his discussions. I will ask, when we go to schools to do evaluations or do accreditation reviews, some of the things we worry about is you put out strategic plans, how do you measure them? Do we have a yardstick to make, and I see the 100%, 80% and all that, that's interesting. But how do we really, practically, measure the success level of what we've done, which I think is one of the difficulties that we've had in most of this, because if you think about the measurability of what you're proposing, they want to say, how do we make sure that we have achieved or we're achieving some part of this goal? That would be my first question. Now, I don't want to ask how did you arrive at this, because I know a lot of good brains, and I'll tell you, I agree with you, there are better brains here than you can find elsewhere in the world, and I'll say it with a pride. If you go around the whole world, the best faculty you find are from Africa. The best engineers are from here. The best educators are from here. The best engineers, I think I went around and I shared with my principal who visited you, and I'm going to come back and visit again now that I'm here, is from Africa. So why not? Why not the collaboration? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Can we take maybe one or two more, and then we can answer them together?
Thank you so much. My name is David Sechi Yurenchi, University of Energy and Natural Resource, Ghana. Upon going through the goals, I realized that you said you want to attain 50% submission rate from member institutions, that is across the sub-Saharan African universities. If I'm clear, it's been estimated that from the year 2030, there's going to be an increase in some countries in terms of population and demographic transitions. And we all know that unemployment has been one of the challenges, not forgetting about the other factors. And so if this is what we plan to achieve, I would also suggest that in as much as we have technocrats among us, we also have researchers. Why don't we take advantage to use some of the research that we have shielded them to start using it as an opportunity in creating employment? Let us begin to have that synergy in terms of now crossing and bridging the gap, in terms of crossing barriers, where we can pick technocrats, experts from different various universities, so that we build that ecosystem, this time in terms of employment. And it is possible when you go to the US, don't forget the Skills USA that has been established. They use the college system and they are building that pioneer right from their youthful. And then some of the youth are able to create companies within the college before they even enter the universities. And so I believe that if we can look at it as West African Hub, we can create that synergy among ourselves. So a professor from University of Ghana and then one from a university from Ivory Coast. But we can pool our resources and energies, put up our energies together, and then come up with something. And then I believe that it will also affect the youth and then our students. And notwithstanding, some of the youth can even join our companies before they finish school. And then with that, we will also be solving the unemployment situations in Africa. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any from this side of the room?
Now that I have the mic, probably
Show me the mic.
also ask my question from here. Is it okay?
Yes.
Yes. Thank
Please
you
go
very much, Rose. I'd said my name earlier, Professor Washington Okeo from Management University of Africa in Kenya. I want to say that is a very good initiative and congratulate the West African Hub for coming up with a strategic plan. And but that is really the easier part. That is a comment I would want to make. It's the easier part to come up with a strategic plan. The more difficult part is now to implement it. One of the pillars that you're talking about is research, particularly on the faculty development and research. And my experience in that area is that even at university level, you try to create an environment for research to thrive, for faculty to do research, but normally there is some kind of reluctance or apathy, and it is very difficult to overcome that apathy. And Rose made a comment about how do you make sure that you rope in the non-academic staff into this business of research. We have tried to do it by creating research areas and appointing research champions from among the faculty who are themselves professors, doctors, PhDs with lots of research experience, but still the takeoff is very, very slow. So that is an area that is very critical, and probably you can share with us how you propose to ensure that that takes off. But importantly, a lot of research that is being done in academic institutions is academic research. It's research that students do for the purposes of moving from one level of their academic level to the next level, say master's research to graduate to PhD, PhD research to graduate, and so on and so forth. And usually there's very little about the societal issues in that sort of research. Now, that is where the challenge is, and I probably would want you to kind of tell us how you propose to bridge that gap between the non-development or community-based research and the academic research. And even as you comment on that, bridging that gap, how will you ensure that the research output that comes from these initiatives of Education Collaborative in West Africa are implemented? And I say this because a lot of research that we do, they find themselves in the shelves, but they don't get to the stage of being implemented, so that the solutions, findings, and so on that have come out of those researches can benefit the society. So if you can comment about those, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and thank you all for the questions. Can we maybe start with implementation, measurability of our strategic plan? Who would like to start?
Okay, so I'll start and then my colleagues will join in. First of all, one of the structure that we have in place is the technical committee. And I must say, in the last several months that we have started this, we have been inspired ourselves with the commitment and the way in which they have been able to deliver. In fact, yesterday, when we had a combined SC and TC meeting, it was very obvious that there is a real synergy in implementation. We have an SC member and a TC member on a particular pillar, and for all the pillars. So we're not just talking. We know that the successful outcome of that particular track is going to be useful to all the institutions. This is the key point. Once we are successful, and let me use the one of career and development, for instance. We're not just, okay, maybe I'll even use the ethics one. They have done 3 different things. It's not the outcome alone that we're talking about, but as soon as we get it, every institution is using it. This is very important. So it is not going to be thrown into the shelf or anything like that. No. If we talk about, let me say, the one on entrepreneur, it's not really here as entrepreneurship, but it's one of the committee of practice that we do. Whatever is developed, immediately, 2, 3, 4, 5 institutions begin to use it immediately. And so when you are using it and you see the results of that, of course, others will go and they say, let us use this as well. So it's not a theoretical. In fact, I believe there are quite a balance between practice and theory. I, for one, am practice-oriented. I came into academics by mistake. So I'm always driving, if it's research, it's always applied research for me. And I'm saying to myself, what is the value of this thing that you are researching? Because if that value cannot be seen by the society, don't do it. Don't do it. That's my own approach. Not that primary research is not good, but this is the way my mind works. So, and that's the way we have been trying to drive the West African hub as well. Now, whatever we do, in fact, we had more than 10 different things that we wanted to do at the same time. This thing that you were talking about, creation of this, we had so many things. Employment. Oh, every government talks about employment. We said, you know what? Let's start with the low-hanging fruits. Let's achieve something. Then we pat ourselves on the back, and then we go to phase 2, and we do other things. But we can't do everything at the same time. Thank you.
So in light of the education collaborative, right, in general, so how do we know we have succeeded in the work we set out to do? We know we have succeeded when a certain structure or system in an institution has been established, is running, and is bringing out the outcomes for which it was set up to be established, right? So to Dr. Banki's point, the West Africa Hub Technical Committee, Strategic Committee, in their continuous reporting and progress, are looking at how adoption for these new models, new approaches, new tools has taken up in the institutions that are in the hub, beyond just the 10 that are in the strategic committee, right? Currently, there are about 36 institutions that are deeply engaging in the West Africa hub, right? So how many of them, for example, have figured out or have implemented the tools to keep tracking graduate employability, for instance, right? So at the end of the 2 years, we want to say, I think we said 100% of institutions in the hub are reporting on graduate employability, meaning that they've tried the tool, they've tested it, and they are using it every year, to report on graduate employability, for example?
Let me just the issue about how do we measure, how do we see, how do we implement, and stuff like that. The point Rose made is so solid, but I'll give you an example of what happened. We joined this collaborative, and one of the areas that we have been very weak, and I say we are weak at how we measure, has been on ethics, especially on students' teaching of ethics. And we are not unaware that this is something we should do. So all of our programs, every program that we have has ethics and legal issues in accounting, ethical and legal issue in all of those. But the conversation that we have always had is how are we sure that what we have taught the students will go out there and apply? When we came into the collaborative, we learned about GVV, giving voice to values. And I said, okay, this is something that will help us to extend something that we're doing in the curriculum. And so already we have inaugurated our team, 5 of my colleagues. The collaboration gave us 3 people. I sent an email, I said, please, I want 5. And then when I got the 5, I wanted to say I want 10. But I know I will get over time. And they have come to inaugurate it already. My colleagues have gone through the module. I was talking to him yesterday. They said they wanted to come for this, the convening. And I say, I don't have budget. Wait. So one of the things that I think would help all of us, even anecdotally, to be able to measure, is to the extent to which what we talk about here become the practice. Yeah. And so you see colleagues, they are happy to get involved. You see colleagues are happy to show what they have learned and to be able to implement it and all of that. And as Dean, I'm happy about that because at the end of the day, then I'm able to show some more outcomes. So that's one of the things. Then we have the issue about research and how we can encourage research. This is a big issue everywhere in the world. And again, we share practices. In the business school in Legon, at the University of Ghana Business School, many years ago, we didn't have a single professor in the entire school. So our colleagues from the sciences would insult, oh, you people, you are always looking for money. Then we decided to turn it around and decided to incentivize people to do research. So we say when you do, every year you write a small proposal, you can get $3,000. And that $3,000 is meant for you to write that paper, publish it, and make sure you can show evidence. So you do the proposal, you get $1,500. When you submit it to a journal, you get $1,500. Some will play the smart, they will submit it, they won't publish, they will get the money. But don't worry. The outcome of this is that over 70% of our faculty members now are professors. In fact, as we sit now, the next council meeting, I'm going to be getting 12 new professors are promoted. So it's showing evidence of those who want to. Those who don't want to, in this game, it is also like that. If you decide that you want to just sit and you won't do anything, it's over to you because our career is also based on what you can do. So there are practices that have succeeded in some places. We are telling that to our colleagues. We are learning what they are doing and all of that. The other thing, which ties in beautifully to the point our Covenant University about research grants. The truth is that research is expensive, and somebody must pay for it. Unfortunately, a lot of our institutions do not have the financial strength to be able to pay for research. And there's no strong groupings in there to raise research grants. And therefore, it becomes difficult to publish and be able to get people to be interested in. And that's why the capacity thing is very important. When you get capacity is like power. Once you get it, you are in a hurry to use it. Chama, use your power. Use your power.
Is enough.
Capacity is like that. So we hope that with those kinds of capacity workshops, if people can win a grant, you win $1 million grant, and your village people, the witches haven't followed you, and you decide that you won't do the research, isn't it your own matter? So over time, we will get there. And especially as we share, as we cross ideas and all of that. Some of it will work, some won't work. We just have to be realistic.
that some things will work, others won't work. Some things will work well in some institutions than in other institutions. And I think in the end, that is what it is. Those places that things are working, they will do it. Those places that things aren't working, they have a place to go and learn. Otherwise, we will drop the shoulders and we will keep going. Yeah.
Thank you. So I'll go back to just a little bit on the strategic plan piece. You know, my approach with strategic plans, as you said, lots of times we spend so much time on strategic plans and we know where they end up, on the shelf. And then when we get to that 5-year or 7-year when it's time to report, then we pull it down and say, oh, what have we done? So my approach personally with strategic plan has always been that these are living, breathing documents, and you need to treat them as such. And I think we're taking that approach because we are consistently going back to the plan and checking in on ourselves and with each other to say, are we moving on this? Do we need to revise things? That's the other thing with the strategic plan. It's not etched in stone. So sometimes you do need to change things. And I think even in our discussions yesterday, we kind of modified some things or thinking about things a little differently. So I think that that's the approach, and that's what keeps us moving this plan forward as well to really support the West African Hub. Now, with respect to research, that's always a challenge, you know, at every institution. And I agree with what Justin has said. You know, I have, a faculty member who's actually from Ghana, who's with us in Cote d'Ivoire. He's in Dean and Dawes College in business. He is one of the top publishing research faculty that we have. And what, not my testament, I'm pointing over here, Dean and Dawes over here in the corner. What Dean and Dawes has done, and I truly support him, is this faculty member is also very selfless. So he's very open, and he has been working with other faculty, those who, you know, aren't so research productive. He's been pulling them into his research project. They have also, what I've liked, and our approach with this, we're also working with industry partners, because I'm a big pusher on how is it that we can help industry partners answer some of their questions. How do we get our students involved, which also connects to employability as well. So we open opportunities for them. But they just published a paper and spent time with BRV. And it's great papers that they have published with this industry partners, with Dr. Afori, who's been working, but they've pulled in other faculty members. So this also gives our students an opportunity to see how do we take research and theory into practice, and how do we make that connection. But I think what we are also beginning to do, and I know we're looking at this a little bit through the West African Hub as well, is how do we not only partner with each other as institutions, but how are we partnering with our industry partners and bringing them to the table, and even with respect to looking at our curriculum, because lots of times employability gets connected to the fact that we're not teaching the students what they need to have to be successful in an employment setting. And the only way we learn that is sometimes bringing our partners, our industry partners, into the curriculum conversation as well. And so I think it's really important for us to think about our partnerships beyond our institutions, but also bringing in our industry and governmental partners as well.
Thank you very much. I think just to add in, I think to Prof. Okeyo, your question and comment about community-based research that really, impacts society. One of the flip side, right, of the research that is driven, or publications that are driven through the Education Collaborative, is really just trying to capture the evidence of what we are doing, how we are doing it, and what makes it successful, right? So an example is this baseline that has been captured currently around the institutions in the hub. What are the structures already in place with career services? How are they approaching it? What exists now? Even that data that has been captured, the analysis of it is going to be published by the team that led that, right? So that it gives insight into what exists now. And now in 2 years, in 3 years, another round is collected, and then, published along or against what is being captured now, so that we see what the difference has been and what was done differently to achieve, better outcomes, hopefully to achieve better outcomes as we are reaching for, right, when we look at it down the line. So beyond maybe academic discipline focus or specific research, there is also the publications of evidence of what we're doing, just simply what we are doing. And hopefully our strategic committee members are going to be publishing how they set up the strategic committee and how they're able to achieve the synergies, to drive the West Africa Hub. So in closing, Dr. Banki, I think I'll ask you first, how are we engaging the entire region? Because currently, we have about 36 institutions, in the West Africa Hub. Our goal is to get to 52 member institutions. To get to that, we estimate that we would need to have engaged some 450 to 500 institutions in the region. And about 10% of that is what we'll get as the member institutions. So how are we thinking about that? And how can we, as institutions that are maybe not on the strategic committee, engage in the hub?
Okay, thank you. There are so many ways, and we all have other universities that are our friends or that we come in contact with one way or the other, but they don't know how to connect to the collaborative. A very clear example is Wigwe University. The DVC was with me last week, and with the Vice Chancellor, with mine as well. And during our conversation, I just said, oh, you should be here. I said, why not? So we look for a way of getting him here. And now he's part of that community. Hopefully, there will be a strong member of the collaborative. That's one example. The second example is through the working community of practice. You really don't have to be, first of all, a registered member of the collaborative to be part of the community of practice. So if I see somebody that is very good, maybe in one of the pillars, I can invite the person to join. And that person can then contribute, see what we're doing, and at some point we'll say, wow, I like what you guys are doing, and we want to be a member. So that's another way. The other way is to bring people in through one of the pillars, which is driving SSA ranking. I believe all of us are interested, or most universities should be interested in it. And if that is the one thing you're coming to take in the education collaborative, then you come in and you see it and wow. So this is how Covenant University has done it. This is how Ashesi has done it. This is how, okay, let me learn from them. Let my university also be part of that ranking. And then you come in and say, now I'm here, let me also contribute my own. So there are many ways and many possibilities that we can join. But what is important is that let us not be selfish, like Justice said. If you have tasted something and it is good, bring a friend. And let all of us together, I won't say enjoy it, but in our collective interest, the more of us that there are and are moving in a particular direction, the better amplified our voices will be. And that is very important. Because right now, we are not even on the table. Right now, we are not even on the table. But if we have an amplified voice, we will be invited to the table. Thank you.
Dr. Banki, you just mentioned my name without mentioning it. The meaning of my name is they haven't tasted. Yes, I'm not kidding. That's the meaning of my name.
Okay, now I know.
So when you said they should bring them to come and taste, people haven't tasted, so they won't come. Those who are here have tasted, and those who have tasted, please let others taste also. Thank you, Selina. Selina was my assistant registrar in the business school and moved to take care of this university's financial aid office. And then she mentioned, Dean, there's this thing, Edu Collab. The name alone was the thing that drove me to. I said, what, Edu what? He says, Edu Collab. Then I got excited about it. And then the long story is that I got a visit and here we are. So, and I am loving it. And I think that is something that, so let's introduce EduCollab to our partners, universities that, for the big public universities in Ghana, we have mentee institutions, introduce them because a lot of the challenges that we face with our mentee institutions, they can actually find help here as well. So that's one of the things that I think we should do. Going forward, I think we should also, and that's what I'm happy I saw my, ORID, the organization, the unit in charge of research, innovation and development of the University of Ghana. I didn't know that they were coming, and then I found them here. One of the things, and that fits into how we are implementing, is that let's get as many units within our institutions as possible involved. And let's make sure that as many people as possible get involved. Out of the many red fishes, we will find one with the biggest eye. We are looking for the red fish with the biggest eye. We can find that only in the plethora of red fishes. So let's get as many people to be red fishes as possible. And I'm sure we will find those that would work. Let's show where sometimes those of us who are here, most of us who are here, are very busy people. Can we scale down the involvement to people who work in various units within our, and that's why my innovation hub, there are 4 people who are here. My assistant registrars are here, because when we talk here and finish, I'm going to be opening and closing meetings. And then Rita is chasing me. So now I have people who will do the pushing, which is what makes it work even better. So I think that's one practical way by which we can get things to happen, because those of us here, thank you very much.
So, I came into the institution, and one of the first emails or messages I got, actually it was like 2 days into the country, the meeting was happening, but I couldn't leave to come to Nigeria because I had just gotten into Cote d'Ivoire. I needed to do a few things, but immediately I followed up, and I think we emailed back and forth, but I was like, telling everybody, we are going to be a part of the educational hub. And I was, telling all of the deans that we were going to be a part, and that I was going to expect them to do work as well. And we had wonderful conversations, and I definitely see why it was important for us to be engaged. But then, just as Justin said, also about how did I get other people involved as well. So then, Dean and Doc got an email from me when it was time for the technical committee. It was like, I've sent your name in, you're now tagged, you're going to be on the technical committee. But he did get a course release out of it, because he was teaching the class and said, you can't teach anymore. I need you to do this and some other things. But, he's definitely been a real advocate on our campus for it. We also have Dr. Ebenezer, who is very familiar with the Education Collaborative, and oversees our innovation and entrepreneurship hub as well. That has been working on it. We've been bringing in students as well, especially as we're working on the pillars and taking lead. So now we have students who are getting engaged and understanding about the collaborative. And we're in a unique place. So we are an American-style, English-instructed institution in Francophone West Africa. And so with that, we've been talking about how do we bring in more of our institutions in Cote d'Ivoire as well, because we do have others where French and English would not be a problem, but then I know we're looking at the Francophone aspect and hub as well. So we're having a conversation trying to pull more institutions in, while we're also being real strategic about pulling in various individuals on our campus to be involved as well. It's been beneficial for us. It's been a lot of engaging but good work, and a lot that we've been able to share with our campus.
Thank you so much. So just to wrap up, I would say that, in the Education Collaborative, one of the things we say, when talking to institutions, trying to determine how to get involved, we say, what do you have, or what idea do you have that you need to start? You're not sure where to start, but you just know you have to start it. So what is it that you want to start? What is it that you are already doing, but it's on a very small scale that you want to scale? You think this is so good, we need to figure out how to scale it. Maybe within our institution first, but then into our country, then the region. And what is it there that you feel others can replicate? So start, scale, replicate. So as a new institution who maybe not be involved yet, you can just ask yourself that question. What do I want to start? What can we scale? And what can be replicated? And that is a good place to start within the regional hub. And the good thing about being in the regional hub is that the institutions are not too far away. I think some of the participants here came by road. Difficult as it may be, it is much more affordable than going to maybe all the way to Southern Africa, for example, right? Because you are in a region where institutions who are in the Education Collaborative are maybe 1 or 2 countries, away from you. So that's this is our panel, and please let's keep the conversation going. We're going to dive deeper into the different strategic pillars tomorrow. A lot of the sessions really are built around the strategic pillars and the work that is already happening within these pillars. So that's it. I don't know if there are any final thoughts. If not, then final thoughts, yes. Please.
Final thought, B.A. Morris. You are wondering what I mean by B.A. Morris. Is Morris in the house? Okay. Morris just stepped out. Oh, where's Morris? He just stepped out. Now, Morris, every year he comes to the June convening, or any convening for that matter. It makes it a point to connect with at least 2 or 3 people, and they must come to his institution to do something. That way, he has been benefiting from being part of the collaborative. So I told him that from this year, we are going to be charging him 10%. But for you, it's free for this year, okay? B.A. Morris, have a nice one.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.